Hey y'all, my name is Allie K. Campbell. The K stands for Klondike Bar. As in, what would you do for one? Would you stop blacking out and landing yourself in shit situations that cause spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical disasters in your life? Great, then you've landed on the right video. If you're new here, I'm taking these off because it's making a f***ing glare. I was using them to maybe like hide the fact that I didn't put any makeup on for this video, but you know what? I don't think that's why you guys are here. Maybe I'll put a hat on. Yeah, honestly. Let's make this a little bit more comfortable for me. Honestly, that's really all that matters, is that I'm comfortable, right? Okay, I'm back. Oh my God, look at how much better I don't look. Who gives a? This is my YouTube channel where I talk about getting real, having fun, and living sober. In this video, you're gonna find out how to deal with, at least the way that I have dealt with, that has helped me. But one of the worst feelings that you can ever feel, that is the aftermath of an alcoholic blackout. Here's the rundown. This is what we're gonna do. First, I'll explain what an alcohol-induced blackout even is. So if you're unsure if you've ever actually experienced one, you'll have a better idea of the signs and symptoms. The second thing that we're gonna discuss, the typical experiences that come with the aftermath of a blackout. Kind of standard set of things that happen within us when we are in the aftermath of a blackout. I'm going to speak from my own experience. I'm also going to share with you guys some of the research that I found from different studies online. After that, I'm going to give you guys some tips for how to tolerate and handle and deal with the awful feeling of being in the aftermath of a blackout. So make sure to watch to the end of the video. That way you can be better prepared if this ever happens to you. Ready? Okay, first let's talk about what exactly an alcohol-induced blackout is. According to a 2018 article by Scientific American, a blackout is when the processes in the hippocampus, which is the area of the brain involved in the formation, storage, and retrieval of new memories, is disturbed. So that area of the brain is disturbed. A certain amount of alcohol gets in your system, not necessarily a certain amount, there's a lot of other factors, but let's just simplify it for right now. Basis of memory formation in your brain goes haywire, or it just turns off altogether. It's scary. So how do you know if you've ever blacked out from alcohol? Well, as a highly experienced blacker outer, the most obvious indication that you've suffered from an alcoholic blackout is that you cannot remember a chunk of the night. Let's assume that you were drinking the night before. For example, you went out with your friends to the bar around 8 p.m., which is around when you started drinking. You have a recollection of the bar, you have a recollection of the music, your friends dancing, that creepy guy, etc., etc. Then around 9 p.m., you guys relocate to a second bar. Perhaps this memory is still kind of intact, maybe a bit fuzzy. You certainly remember the name of the bar, you remember going there, you remember who you were with, but perhaps it's just a little less clear, what a lot of people call a brownout. Then around 10 p.m., you and your friends apparently hit up a third bar. I say apparently because you do not remember going to the third bar at all. You could have been there for 3 minutes or 3 hours or 3 decades. It doesn't matter because time does not exist when you're in a blackout. Like I said, very scary stuff. Now, the weirdest thing about it, and perhaps the most terrifying part about it, during this time period, it's very likely that you're still walking, talking, and existing alongside the rest of the world in a way that is giving everybody else around you the impression that you're okay, that you're conscious, but you're not. Meanwhile, the next day when they tell you you did A, B, and C, which you don't remember and you feel like shit about, and they say, oh, but you looked fine. You were up, you were walking, you were talking, you were eating chicken nuggets, you were good. That's the tricky part about a blackout. It's very possible that you seem like you're not in a blackout. The main thing is that you have no recollection of doing these things. You have no recollection of the span of time that the blackout happened. That is what makes a blackout a blackout. Limbo, purgatory area of life where you're like a literal zombie doing everything that a person would normally do when they're conscious, but you're not. Night of the Living Dead, really. Lights are on, but nobody's home. Obviously, the longer you're in a blackout, the more dangerous it can become. And that's not to say that it's not dangerous, even if you're blacked out for 5 minutes. There have been times where I, in a blackout, have decided that it would be a really good idea to walk into New York City traffic. That should prove my point. Not only the scariness of blackouts, but also the scariness of me as a person. Who the f is that? I'm trying to shoot a video in here. Oh, and also to be clear, a blackout is not the same thing as passing out. Passing out, you're not doing shit. You're laying on the ground. That's at the point where your friends would be saying, oh shit, like they're not okay. Like we should probably bring them home. Now let's talk about what the typical aftermath of a blackout is like. From my personal experience, it's awful. It's really awful. The aftermath of a blackout is filled with anxiety, shame, depression, confusion, fear. Basically cherry pick a negative emotion that a human being can experience, and I probably will be on some level experiencing it in the aftermath of a blackout. Not to mention, a lot of the time it came with interpersonal issues, relationship problems. It even furthered more substance abuse, since there was a very good chance that in my blackout, I blacked out often, guys. Like 9 out of 10 times that I drank, I blacked out. And I blacked out from the very beginning when I first started drinking. The first time I drank, I blacked out and actually went to the hospital. So I really am very experienced in this fucking awful thing. Throw that on a resume, am I right? So there was always a very good chance that during a blackout, I actually did something to upset somebody, to piss somebody off, or to cause some kind of chaos. Fights and arguments as a result of my behavior in a blackout were common, especially romantic relationships, and actually especially familial relationships. Like I would do some really messed up stuff to my parents when I was blacked out too. And since it was incredibly difficult for me to tolerate that inundation of negative feelings, the substance abuse would get furthered because I wouldn't have any other way to cope or come down other than using drugs or to drink again, which normally I didn't do that. I wasn't much of a hair of the dog type person because I usually got like very physically ill the next day. So I wasn't able to keep any alcohol down. Needed to use other drugs to just deal with the anxiety and the aftermath of what I did from drinking and blacking out the night before. From what I've heard from a lot of the people who commented on my last YouTube video about blacking out, which I made like I think 8 or 9 months ago, as well as a bunch of people that I know who are in recovery or people who are even just identify as sober curious, my experiences are actually very similar to what they've gone through as well. I still figured, why not look into the science and the research behind this phenomenon? Most of what I could find about the aftermath of a blackout is related to the term anxiety. It's weird to say, it sucks to feel. What you might not know is that assuming you're feeling a lot of anxiety as a result of a blackout, it's likely not only because you're worried about what you might have done that you can't remember. That's part of it for sure. Physiologically, something is happening in your body, in your brain, that's making you anxious as well. The alcohol that you put into your system causes the brain to produce more glutamate, a chemical that causes anxiety. The alcohol also blocks GABA, a chemical that calms us down. When you first start drinking, it's the opposite. So it kicks up the GABA and you have that feel-good feeling, and it blocks the glutamate and you don't have any anxiety. But the next day, shit turns around. So this explains twofold why so much anxiety is being felt, that anxiety in the aftermath of a blackout, on top of the fact that you're already concerned with what the f did I do last night. So now let's look at another common experience that happens during the aftermath of a blackout. Shame. Shame is different. Shame is built different. It's different than an emotion like anxiety. Isn't necessarily, as far as I know, a physical set of bodily sensations. It's not like GABA or dopamine or glutamate or whatever the f. According to another article in Scientific American, this one was written in 2019, shame is actually a result of when we violate the social norms that we believe in. So shame is either like a real or imagined self and social violation. It leads us to feeling a host of awful things like humiliation, exposed, like naked, small, just awful. That feeling that you can't look anybody in the eye, you don't want to look in the mirror, you can't see yourself, you want to crawl out of your skin, you just want to poof and not exist. Awful feeling, toxic emotion. And for me, shame is 100% the biggest motivating factor that keeps me from drinking again. Do with that information what you will. I'm now sober for almost 5 years, and shame has kept me that way. And yes, I can go into the other experiences that come with the aftermath of a blackout, like confusion, depression, and then all the other shit that just comes with being hungover, right? I feel like it is kind of self-evident. So of course you're going to be confused when you wake up and you have no idea what you did all night. Depression is also a huge factor because you feel bad about yourself. You feel bad. Honestly, almost everything about alcohol and consuming it is depressing to me. I don't know. It's just, it sucks, dude. Like, just do different drugs, honestly. All right, so now we've got like the kind of like nerdy science stuff out of the way. Let's get to the meat of this. How can you deal with the aftermath of a blackout based on all the information that we just talked about? These tips, by the way, are not based in science. Also, I'm not a doctor. Didn't have to tell you guys that. Like, come on, come on. They are things that have helped me, and they're also things that I've had lots and lots of time sober to reflect on. I hope that they can also be helpful for you. Number one, you need to calm the fuck down. If you're in the aftermath of a blackout, you need to calm your body, your mind, and your spirit down. You need to relax. I understand how absolutely uncomfortable it feels to be you in that moment, but taking even 15 minutes to do something that will relax your mind and your nervous system is essential. When you're in a state of anxiety, everything is heightened. You can't think clearly. You can't do anything clearly. You can't get to the next step of whatever you're trying to do because you're shackled with panic. So whatever works for you, whether it's a bath, if you want to smoke a joint, smoke a joint. Would I suggest drugs as a proper way to cope with it? Not necessarily, but I've been there and I know that sometimes that really is the only option. So if it happens, it happens. But also try to do other things that can calm you down. Listening to soothing music. If you can try like listening to a guided meditation, watching like a feel-good movie or TV show, a comfort meal. Number two, you guys are gonna hate me for this, but you need to work out. You need to move your body. I don't care if it's not like an exercise per se. Clean the house, chase the dog around, like it doesn't matter, but just get your blood pumping and get the endorphins because you need them, especially if you typically experience like depression in the aftermath of a blackout. And again, I know this is easier said than done, but 10 minutes, 15 minutes, if you can just get that, then you can roll right back into bed if you want. Just try and do a little bit. I would also highly suggest yoga. This knocks off number one and number two. It's relaxing and it's physical movement, so it's dual purpose. Number three, depending on what kind of friends you have or family or partner, whoever you were spending the time that debauchery with, the people that you were around when you blacked out, you need to really consider whether or not it's going to be healthy for you to reach out to them and like find out what you did or try and get consolation from these people that you didn't do anything stupid. Because if your friends are assholes or they don't realize that this is affecting you as horribly as it is, they might just be like, yeah, well, you stripped on the bar and then made out with the bartender who was 84 and actually just turned out to be a hobo outside on the street. And maybe you don't want to hear that. So think about it. Don't go to the people who are going to heighten your anxiety more. If anything, maybe don't seek out the information ASAP. The point is, don't reach out to anybody who's going to make you feel worse. Use your best judgment for who you can connect with, because connection in this state of mind is really important, especially because connection combats shame. Isolation enhances it. Number four, here's the logic for number four. If blacking out is an issue for you, drinking alcohol might be an issue for you. You might be feeling hopeless or desolate, out of control. What makes us feel better when we're feeling hopeless, desolate, and out of control? Solutions, taking back control of our lives, doing something about the issue at hand, right? If you have the capacity to do so, again, you can just do a little bit. You don't have to take it far. You can just do it for 10 minutes. Do some research into your options for either finding a way to drink more healthily, in moderation, or more safely for that matter, or maybe consider, a temporary stint of sobriety or going fully abstinent. Like you never know what can happen from it. This is a lot of the time where people start their recovery paths. Just to throw it out there, you don't need to be an alcoholic to get sober. You do not need to be an alcoholic to get sober. You don't even need a drinking problem to get sober. If you have a relationship with alcohol that makes you feel kind of weird, that's more than enough reason to consider sobriety or give it a shot or do it for a month, whatever. Number 5, give yourself a fucking break. Assuming you didn't cause any like major catastrophic issues or any harm to yourself or others, which sadly is not always the case. It hasn't always been the case for me. Please remember that alcohol is a poison. It's an addictive poison. You are not crazy. You are not fucked up. You are not broken because you blacked out from an addictive poison, okay? It can happen to anybody. It happens to a lot of us. Do what you can to be kind to yourself, to be gentle with yourself during this time, during this aftermath and the blackout, and do your best to make changes so that you can avoid it happening again. Remember the way that you feel right now or during that period. It should inspire you to make a change for next time, if there's a next time. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful. If you made it this far, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Consider supporting the channel by buying me a coffee. The link is in the description of the video. It's been real. It's mostly just been real today, but I guess it's also been fun. It's been real and it's been fun. It's been real fun. All right, I will see you guys next time.